Last episode, we left off with Doc and Murphy stumbling into a sketchy shop, only to be kidnapped by two odd characters. Just then, 10K and Lily barged in.
You two look like you smell.
And that is a compliment.
Ugh, that phobic nasty.
No sooner had 10K felt a wave of discomfort than he puked on the spot. The sight had everyone trying their hardest to hold it in, but to no avail. Seconds later, as the smell hit them, they all started throwing up. Alright, their actions provided a feast for the zombies under the floor. Sorry to those munching on something right now. Hope you don't cuss me out. Meanwhile, Roberta was making her tough journey through the bubbles when she suddenly spotted a man in a hazmat suit ahead and immediately chased after him. The scene goes back to the hairdresser's shop, where the crowd throws up all the food in their stomachs, and then both sides start fighting again. Outnumbered, the kidnapped victims fought back. Sketchy and Skeezy had it rough, though. They just couldn't overpower the monstrous Tiny, and just as they managed to stand, they slipped on the vomit on the floor, accidentally triggering a trapdoor mechanism. Coincidentally, Lily dropped a gun into the hole during a struggle with Sal. This scared Murphy silly, like a little girl, but then he got an idea upon seeing a sunbed. Outside, Tiny regained control of the situation, but the next second, Murphy emerged with some perfectly tan zombies. These had to be the most disgusting zombies I've ever seen. Tiny fired several shots at the zombies to no avail, then pushed the onlooking Sketchy brothers towards them. The Sketchy brothers were pinned down by zombies, screaming in sheer terror. Luckily, Sal saves the Sketchy brothers by crushing the zombie's head with his foot. Just then, Skeezy noticed a bite mark on his shoulder.
Me too.
She bit you?
No, she bit you.
But you said that...
She bit you.
Am I gonna tan?
No, little buddy. You're gonna Z.
The group began debating how to deal with Skeezy before he turned into a zombie. After much discussion and disagreement, they decided to vote, ultimately choosing to exile Skeezy. Just then, two men entered, looking queasy. The group advised them to throw up outside before coming in. Watching the two heave made everyone feel sick again. Meanwhile, Sketchy sneakily hid a key in his mouth. When the two men returned to the house, they asked what was being discussed, and the crowd said they were voting on whether or not to throw the bitten Skeezy out.
This is a real cock-up.
Oh, yeah, I mean, just put him out of his misery. Toss him outside. Do you want to vote?
I think we just did.
Sketchy then stops them and says he'll give the brothers one last goodbye. Then, he kissed Skeezy, passing the hidden key to him, but honestly, it was a bit too much for the eyes. Subsequently, Skeezy was forcibly thrown out. Sketchy was trying to save Skeezy, and the bite mark on Skeezy's shoulder was also made by Sketchy on purpose. At that moment, the two burly men pulled out guns, intending to rob them. It's been a long day. The robbers deliberated on how to deal with the group. At that moment, Sketchy spoke up, tricking the robbers with tales of valuable items in the basement through his smooth talk. The robbers believed him, and when they opened the door, a horde of zombies rushed out, killing the robbers amidst their ranks. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from within, and Tiny and Sal managed to fight their way out, resetting the situation to square one. Just then, Skeezy fired a rocket launcher, shattering the door. The flying doorknob directly impaled Tiny and Sal.
Closing time!
You?
Afterwards, Murphy and the others prepared to leave, while Sketchy and Skeezy decided to take over the barbershop. Outside, the foam had dissipated. Roberta caught up with the man in the hazmat suit, only to find, upon his mask removal, it was the supposedly dead Dr. Teller.
Everything depends on you.
As soon as Dr. Teller finished speaking, he vanished like a mirage. Murphy and the others came out of the barbershop just in time to meet Roberta. Back at the barbershop, Sketchy and Skeezy seemed to enjoy their new lifestyle, though Skeezy took that kiss to heart.
Get a dog. What?
Oh, get a dog.
Yeah.
Get a dog.
Yeah, you think there's any of them left?
Oh, I'm sure somewhere.
Yeah. Here, let me see.
Okay. Let me see. Voila! Huh? What do you think? All right.
Team X, following Roberta's lead, arrived at a laboratory, which was once the workplace of Dr. Teller. By then, the exterior of the lab was littered with corpses. Even the zombies had been desiccated by the wind. It seemed this place had been abandoned for a long time. Suddenly, a zombie wearing a metal ball helmet rushed out, startling Murphy into jumping aside. Lily, wielding her shotgun, quickly fired off 2 shots. Doc immediately stopped Lily from wasting bullets, pointing out the zombie was wearing a bulletproof helmet. The zombies stood up like a headless fly. Doc realized that the zombies' helmets were reversed and they couldn't see the road at all. Everyone started to play with the zombies. At that moment, Roberta lured the zombie aside with a metal basin. Then, she urged everyone to quickly don protective suits and enter the lab. Meanwhile, Kaya had been researching information on Black Rainbow. She discovered that people from Zona had taken all the data related to Black Rainbow and even sent a launch code to the National Defense Security Department. This complicated matters significantly, as they needed to understand what Zona intended to launch. The scene goes back to Roberta, where the men put on chemical suits and enter the lab. Roberta instructed Murphy to find a way to power up and contact Kaya, then to inquire about the progress of her investigation into Black Rainbow. She, following the guidance of her dreams, sought items related to Black Rainbow.
Lab spec this way.
Now, Sarge, try not to step in any of that glowing fungus.
After Murphy and the others left, Roberta was suddenly enveloped in a bright light and began walking towards another path like a puppet on strings. Meanwhile, Murphy and his team arrived in a terrifying room filled with glowing fungi. Soon after, Murphy found the entrance to the lab, which presumably contained what they were looking for. Entering, they were met with a sight that made their skin crawl.
This is Teller's wife. She was infected by one of their experiments.
Everyone was deeply saddened by her ordeal. Elsewhere, guided by her visions, Roberta reached her destination, only to find it blocked by a steel door. With no other option, she attempted to push it open with all her might, but her efforts alone were barely noticeable, and the door remained immovable. Fortunately, 10K, concerned for Roberta, arrived to help. Together, they managed to push the door open. Following the guidance, Roberta then entered a code, leading 10K bewildered by her actions. Upon entering the room, Roberta familiarly turned on the light to find a metal box standing in the center of the room. 10K inquired about the box, but Roberta, as if not hearing him, walked straight to it and began unlocking it. Watching the box secured with several locks, 10K couldn't help but worry about what horrors might be inside. On the other side, Murphy and his team were still searching for electricity. Suddenly, Doc spotted a glimmer of light ahead. Though unsure of its source, it indicated that something was powering it. They cleared the debris at the entrance and pushed the door open to proceed inside. They encountered a device resembling a hibernation pod, with the light they saw emanating from it. Curious about the contents, Doc wiped the glass clean.
Oh man, there's a kid in there!
Upon seeing the boy, Murphy guessed that he was Dr. Teller's son, Andrew. However, Andrew appeared to have been dead for some time. With a gunshot wound to his head, the power supplied to the hibernation pod was likely intended to preserve his body from decaying. After seeing this, Lily thought Dr. Teller was too cruel. However, Murphy didn't share that view. He believed that if he had had access to such a device, he might have done the same for Lucy, sealing her inside it. The pain of losing a child can drive a father to irrational acts. Lily then found the control panel. The electricity was sufficient to contact Kaya. Without hesitation, she unplugged the device's power cord. Murphy, sensing something was amiss, frantically urged Lily to restore the power.
Stop! Stop! Turn it back on! Turn it back on!
Okay.
What's wrong?
He's alive. This kid's alive.
Unexpectedly, the child was still alive. The machine was maintaining Andrew's life, and cutting the power would end it. However, the immediate priority was to contact Kaya, so Doc decided to search for another power source alone. On Roberta's side, 10K kept calling out to her, but Roberta, completely focused on opening the metal box according to the instructions from her dream, didn't respond at all. At that moment, a zombie, drawn by the scent of the living, began to approach the room where Roberta was. Unaware of the danger, Roberta continued to unlock the box swiftly. Just as she was about to unlock the final lock, the zombie, following the scent, charged into the room. 10K immediately engaged in a struggle with the zombie. However, the zombie was too strong, and 10K could only kick it away. But unexpectedly, the unbalanced zombie fell onto Roberta. Strangely, the zombie didn't attack Roberta but instead resumed fighting with 10K. Eventually, 10K was overpowered and pinned against the wall by the zombie, unable to move. Just then, Roberta snapped back to reality from her trance and saw 10K being attacked by the zombie. She quickly picked up a chain from the ground. In a critical moment, Roberta timely knocked the zombie to the ground with a punch, and what followed was Roberta unleashing a barrage of attacks. Afterward, Roberta asked 10K where they were. 10K listens and starts to explain that she should be caught in a vision and has been unlocking the metal box. Just then, as the power was nearly depleted, Roberta tried to unlock the box again, but back in reality, she couldn't remember the code. Meanwhile, Doc was searching for another power source in the lab alone.
This is just about the time something jumps out at you.
Sure enough, Doc knows his way around a horror film, and after 300 rounds of fighting with the zombies, Doc finishes it off with a hammer blow. On the other side, Kaya had gone to the archives to search for information on Black Rainbow, which contained intelligence from all over the world. Kaya quickly found information on Black Rainbow, and reading through it, she became terrified. Now, she needed to convey the information to Roberta as soon as possible. Clearly, the Black Rainbow project was terrifying. On the other hand, Roberta had been brewing for a long time but couldn't think of the password. Suddenly she thought of another way, which was to let 10K attack her, because sometimes she would fall into the illusion during the battle.
Hit me. Harder. Hit me.
As expected, after 10K's punch, Roberta entered the trance again and slowly stood up, going back to unlocking the metal box. With the last lock falling off, the metal box was successfully opened.
Warren, wait, your mask!
There's a glowing flesh inside a metal box. Roberta pulled out some gas canisters from inside, which grossed out 10K. As Roberta took out the last canister, she returned to reality. They then hurried to regroup with Murphy. Soon, Roberta found Lily and the others. Murphy explained that the device contained Teller's child, who was being kept alive by it. Using the electricity to contact Kaya would mean the child's death. It was time for a difficult decision. Roberta decided to forsake the child after some thought. Murphy was furious, unable to fathom sacrificing a life for an unknown mission, but Roberta wasn't heartless. Her instincts were pushing her to complete the mission, or they all might die. As they argued, Lily suggested using half the electricity to restore communication and the other half to keep the machine running. Everyone had no choice but to agree. Roberta immediately contacted Kaya. Kaya revealed that the Black Rainbow Project was a biochemical weapon researched during the Cold War by the United States. Capable of causing global extinction, the people from Zona had already initiated the launch code. Shocked, Roberta urgently inquired how to stop it. But just then, the conversation was interrupted due to insufficient power, prompting Roberta to once again focus on the power supply to the hibernation pod. Everyone except Roberta voted against it, insisting on preserving Andrew's life. Seeing this, Roberta began to persuade everyone, arguing that if they couldn't stop the Black Rainbow Project, Andrew wouldn't survive anyway. Moreover, with so many survivors in the post-apocalyptic world, could they really stand by and watch all those innocent people die for his sake? Silenced by her words, they could only watch as Roberta turned off the power to the hibernation pod. Roberta contacted Kaya again, who shared the method to stop the Black Rainbow Project. They needed to go to a nuclear silo and manually change the launch code. The tricky part is that you need the president's fingerprints to change the codes. The revelation left everyone in silence.
Looks like we're going to Washington.
They then drove to Washington in search of the president. Sitting in the car, no one spoke, perhaps mourning the death of Andrew or perhaps overwhelmed by the daunting task ahead.